things like that. So computers start here. What we have is like, well, everybody remember this one. Classic pet. I will do it twice or 3 times, so you don't have to press. This is in fact not only one of the first pet series, it's the serial number 4. This is a special thing. This machine is always the first I move into a new storage and the last out of the old one.
How does this
work? Well, I'm optimistic to get all of this in one truck. Well, you see this little unit here, the green beige one. This is a drum storage. So this is basically the father of all disks. Think of a drum cylinder running and have a number of heads going under. Here we have 256 heads. The heads are fixed, non-movable, so just the tracks run around. It's quite short access time.
What's the size?
The track is about, just have to recolor it.
1.
Roughly 2K a track.
How many tracks?
256 tracks.
Okay.
Well, 256 heads is 256 tracks. Every track got his head. Early computers like the SUSE machines used the drum as their basic timing and storage device. There were no register or whatever. Everything was on the drum. So you were reading in the data from the drum, writing out to the drum. In here we see a Univec 9200, which is basically the PC of the 1960s.
Ja.
No,
Vorsicht.
if you stand in there, you've got all your computing needs right at your hand. You got a printer, you got a computer,
Video.
a CPU, you got a card reader and a card punch. This, for example, is an SLS and Schriftenlesesystem. This is a very early commercially used handwriting recognition. Überweisungsscheine. Everybody knows that when you do a bank transaction, you write some little paper where you want to send your money. This machine could read it, print it out on the screen in graphics and whatever it made out of the graphic. And you could correct here, then the paper is stored, and the data got transferred to a mainframe. Here, this for example is a 390 compatible mainframe from the mid-90s. It's a tiny small machine, even smaller than that one, but these are the disk arrays, a little bit bigger than the card storage over here. Or here we have a Dietz 610, which is a mini computer from the early 1970s, 1970 to 1978. So interesting is a complete TTL machine. TTL machine. So no iron-integrated chips. It's an 8-bit processor with a very unique instruction set. For example, you could modify most instructions to work on multiple bytes. So you had a single byte add instruction, and with the right prefix, it could add up to 256 bytes. So I would like a variable length machine. Very, very interesting. And forgotten. Now seriously, we should always try to look back what ideas others had before. Because there were people sitting down for a long time and coming up with great ideas. So we just have to look back and get our inspiration there, or see what others have done before and make it better. And more important, most of these old ideas are not copyrighted. Patents or whatever. Back in the 60s, no one was thinking about patents. I mean, even in the early 80s, mainframe people were still exchanging code. I mean, there is code I know from Deutsche Bank, which has been used at Commerzbank at a time when they were very hard competition. Yeah? But there are programmers which are, oh, this is a great routine to split up names, let's just take it over. And they were just exchanging it like open source today. But nobody had a name for that, it was just the way it is. Maybe sometime we get that there.
mit dem Franke hat nicht so ganz geklappt hier. Es ist ein kontinuierlicher Strom gewesen, der wahrscheinlich in die Sackgasse führt.
Ja, und dann haben wir einen Buffer-Overflow da hinten.
Ja, genau. Eher ein Jam.
Oh, guck mal, in die Wack.
Ah, ein alter Mac. Das ist ja richtig aus meiner Zeit.
So if anybody of you really know, like 5, 6, 7 or more 100 square meters of room for next to nothing, just tell me. Otherwise, most of this stuff will go for scrap. No, this is not really the funniest of all situations right now. Yeah, well, if you like workstations, this is like HP and Sun stuff. Ja. What more? Ich denke, wir tauschen mal ein bisschen. Could we just change from the people from the back to the front?
Da haben wir eine gute Lücke.
Seriously, I didn't expect so many people here. Nein, da kommt man nicht raus. Eigentlich ist das hier eine Einbenutzersituation. Und wir haben jetzt Multi-User gebootet. Hier sieht man vielleicht in der Mitte zwei Lochkartensortierer von IBM. Der vordere hier ist aus den 1930ern. Dieses graue Gestell, was auf der Seite ist. Dahinter steht dann einer aus den 40er Jahren. Punch cards are really the core of all IT. I mean, with a punch card you can really explain anything about computers. From data acquisition, about sorting, about storage, about selection, everything is possible with punch cards. And if you got a few mechanical counters, you could do any kind of calculation, like they did back then. And I mean, real programmers didn't use JavaScript or something like that. Real programmers used wires. This is a program for, I guess, 1960s mechanical machine order. Should be used, like one of the data I found about, have been used until about 1970. This technology was developed in the 1920s. So what you do here is you have the input card, you wire the input from certain columns to function blocks like comparators, adders, counters, or whatever, or register to store them. And then you could like multiply two numbers, add two numbers, and print out the result. Yeah, if we go back, if we think about the Second World War, we all think about these Wunderwaffen, all these super rockets, secret weapons, or whatever. In reality, World War II was the first computerized war. We're not talking some drones today, we're talking about the basic function of an army. World War I was in reality the war with the super weapons. This was the first time we had airships, planes, submarines, tanks. That was everything in World War I. The only technology not available in World War I was information processing, because the whole development of mechanical card processing was not ready at that time. But in the 1930s, this technology was widely developed and rolled out to a lot of companies. So the whole behind the scenes working of an economy to fuel a war was controlled by computers. In fact, the Reichskriegsministerium did still transfer money after the capitulation to companies. The whole economic sector in Germany was still working after the 45. We produced more than 2,000 Me-262 jet fighters. Just a few came to fly, but the whole economic process behind was running, and it was running because of punch cards. If we think about, if we think about the Holocaust, it was in great parts fueled by punch cards. One of the first things the Nazis did after getting to power was doing a Volkszählung. Census, ja, verflixt noch einmal. And the census was accompanied by going through church and synagogue books and writing down tables of birth dates, names, places, to build up family trees. Because one of their parts of their weird ideology was you could be a half Jew, a quarter Jew, an eighth Jew, or a 16th Jew. And to calculate all of this, they really were running the data through punch card machines. The part was they could come up with a list of people to catch within hours from a city. So they just go through the census and the church book data, mix them, and get a list of people and send out their police or whatever forces. It was all done by computing. Of course it would have worked otherwise, but it was a real difference. If anybody remembers the book IBM and the Holocaust, look it up. It's still available on Amazon. The theories in there are maybe a little bit weird sometimes, but he describes the technology very, very well. Okay, what's more fun? More fun is doing your own punch card. Do you see this little guy up there? Just lift it and give it to me. This is basically half of the PDA of the 1950s. This is the way you could do a punch card. We can do later on a few if we want. I think I have a box of cards over there. You just put your card in there, turn this dial until the letter you want, and punch. Very simple. So this is the PDA instead of this machine, which is more like the real computer. Over here we have a little sorter, because if you have your data all on the cards, you want to find out like a specific customer card or whatever. You use a sorter. The sorter is not only something to sort cards, but in fact is something to select cards. So this is a little desktop sorter. So these two together form your PDA. Any questions?
So in the sorter you could search for some data?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, a sorter is basically you go on, select the column, and say, okay, give me all values of this column in either stack. So you have stacks 0 to 9, and an overflow stack and an unreadable stack. And so you just go and say, okay, column, if you want to select everyone from birth year 61, you first select all cards on the Zehnerstelle, 10-digit. You get every of your employees sorted out in each pocket. So you take everyone in the 6th pocket, move it by the other pocket, put it again in, go one to the left, take the 1 digit, run it again, and then everything in one pocket is people born in 61. So it's just 2 runs in this little desktop machine. See, the big thing about IT is not how many gigaflops or whatever we have. It's always, can a certain task be done with a computer? So the step from no computer to a SUSE Z4, like used in Zurich, is a huge step because this computer enabled several operations, several tasks to be done, which were before that almost impossible. So the step from no computer to an incredible slow computer is more important than the step from this slow computer to like a Cray 1. If you look back in computing history, you find several steps where new usage was possible, new applications were possible, and really changed the world around. Yeah. Questions? Question about the collection? Well, the idea is we want to make a museum out of this. This started out as a personal spleen. In fact, the first computer, not visible here, I got, which I didn't need, was in 1983, in March 83, a PET. Of course, years before that, I was standing at Kaufhof here in Munich, where they really had the first PET on display. And it was not hidden behind glass, it was just on a shelf and you could play with it. So this is where I got hooked to the computer in '78. And of course, I never had the money to buy the computer back then. But a few years later, and a cheap used one, I just couldn't withstand. So I bought me this computer, and from there on, it's a steep downward run. Now, what we want to do is build a museum here in Munich where the central goal is not about old technology, but rather about today. Explaining the world of today to the people of today who don't know really what happens when they cross the street. I mean, if you cross the street today, at least a dozen computers are talking about you. It starts by some signaling equipment, seeing that a pedestrian's waiting, goes over modern cars with sensors detecting crossing pedestrians and whatever. And I'm not really sure what they talk beside their protocol. So the idea is using this old technology, which is easy to understand, like a punch card, to show people what is really happening. What does IT mean? Okay, we're here more an educated group. I guess most of you have computers, playing with computers and so on. But we're not the 100%. We're more like the 1% of this society. Yeah? And our success is based that everybody understands what's happening. Because nobody will use, if you invent a real cool application and nobody understands what it's about, how many do you sell? 0. Or you sell to a bunch of idiots who later on sue you because they didn't understand what you sold them. So the idea is a museum with like a third of the effort on technology, another third on today's life, and of course 1/3 about old computers because they are just cool. Well, that's my inner geek. I have to satisfy it. Right now we are in a little bit the critical situation here because we have to leave here. We have to get out here soon, very soon. So we're about to start, for once, a rescue operation, but we don't have a new space right now. So if anybody of you got space or knows someone who want to help with money, just give me a call. Besides that, we want to start a fundraising campaign and get a funding for a prototype museum. Because we believe that we should start a museum today like we do business today. We're not going out of the closet and think we invented the world. We have a set of good ideas and we build a prototype. And this prototype is supposed to run for 2 years and then will be cut off. Within these 2 years, we will try different attempts to show content, to see what ways are really working. Because we don't want to have set computers just behind glass walls. We want to make them available. But we have to see, does it work with the people? Do they understand? Do they get something for it? Or is it just for geeks? So we want to use this 2-year period old museums. Yeah? I'm not saying they're idiots. They have great history and they're doing good work. But we have the idea to do something new, a bit more to the people from today. And this is a 2-year period we want to finance with the crowdfunding. And of course, you're welcome as soon as this campaign is starting to join. We want to run away.
What's the name, so we can find it?
Oh, sorry. like before when I didn't say my name up there. It's Computeum. Well, we were sitting around and someone just said, computer and museum, just splice it together. So Computeum. Sounds really Greek. Yeah, thank you for your time. If you got any more questions. Yeah.
Did you, for example, that used to be here in the 90s?
No, this is all new collection. Okay. Well, new. It's a collection that happened over 30 years. You know, I really started out with this one computer. And it was sitting for like more than 2 or 3 years in the living room, and it was just nice. There was even a phase when my little daughter was like 3.5 years old, when I was not allowed to shut it off. You may remember Commodore with this weird symbol character set. So this little girl figured out how to paint on the screen. Well, of course, there was no function to save or whatever, and I couldn't enter any program. But, ooh, I should never switch it off. From there on, just more and more interesting, at that time still somewhat up-to-date stuff came in because it began to be cheap. I mean, in 1985, some Sinclair computers were just new, given away for a few marks. And somewhere in the 90s, it turned into really collecting. And it turned into a nightmare well, my apartment was about 100 square meters, and at that time I had several hundred computers in there. Seriously, a Messi would have had a cleaner place. That was the point when I said, okay, it doesn't work. Either I really live in my computers, or I turn them away, or I get some real place. This was when I moved into a first storage. And of course, we all know if there's empty space, there's a hidden force filling it. Nature don't like empty space. This is also one thing we tried in one of the storages. We put up all these Gitterboxen in squares with a hole in the middle, because this was a huge computer gravitational experiment. Because with all these computers around, and a vacuum of computers in between, we should get virtual computers out there, and some of them should disintegrate. Well, it didn't work out, so we need more computers for the next stage. While we were here at this place, we got a great offer in the Werk 3, the building which is now rebuilt, to build up a museum. Just short time after we started and renovated that place, the decision came the whole building will be torn down. Okay. So we had to move out, move over here, and a little bit of a chaotic phase followed, including well, I didn't run well over that time, because I gave up my work to do the museum over there and ended up in a situation of learning that you could also not be unemployed because of missing skills, but you could also be unemployed for too much skills. Because my knowledge is rather narrow on computers and large-scale networks, and this is both something people don't really look for. Unless you know a job for an assembly programmer. I've done like 70+ computers in assembly. So any architecture you can think of, I'll do in assembly. Of course, I mean, there is the basic motto I live for is, if you can't do it in assembly, you got to solder it. Thank you.